I think this is the second. I don't know. Wide receiver, tight end, and offensive line are all very interesting. But let's get into wide receiver. So right now, DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo are going to be 2 out of your 3 starters, most likely. I don't really see how that changes. I'm going to throw this to you. Who do you think is the number 3 wide receiver at the end of spring ball, or even like if you want to go all the way at the end of fall ball, but for spring ball, who do you think it ends up being for right then?
It's hard for me to bet on anybody other than Kaleb Lockett at this point.
Yeah.
Just the level of talent and the level of explosiveness and his ability. Like, he is just like, he's just a freak. Like, he is a freak athlete. He's able to take the top off the defense, but he's also big and physical. Like, he plays like a much bigger receiver somehow. I don't know how else to say that, right? But like, he's able to jump and get 50-50 balls. He is, when you think about a prototype wide receiver, I don't know if it gets any better than Kaleb Lockett at this point. It's like, I would be shocked if it's anybody but him. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I would not be shocked if it's also Jamie French, because I think Jamie French is another guy who can come in and do the same thing. Very explosive athlete, able to high point the ball, physical. The route running is going to be the question, I think, for both of them. Now, Sark doesn't make things too complicated on wide receivers, especially young wide receivers. He's just like, hey, go be fast, go run a dig route, go run a slant. All right, so I'm curious to see what type of route running load. But then you see a guy like Xavier Worthy, who was a polished route runner and ran a lot more complicated routes, especially in the red zone. So like, that's going to be the question. But again, to answer your question succinctly, I would be shocked if it's anybody other than Kaleb Lockett.
Yeah, I'm all in on him. I have to be because when the DeCorian Moore thing was going on, I said on this channel, I think Kaleb Lockett is the best wide receiver in the country. I don't care what anyone says. I think he's better than Dallas Wilson. I think he's better than DeCorian Moore. I think he's better than Jamie French. I just love the ability that he has overall. Like, he's got decent straight line speed, not great. He's got decent agility, not great, but he is so damn good with the ball in the air. Like, 2-3 guys, it really doesn't matter. He can go up, out jump them, and then get the ball. And then also, what makes him unique, a lot of those guys will catch it and fall down. He catches it and stays on his feet, and he's able to get the yards after the catch. So this guy's special. And like you said, like what we did with Ryan Wingo this year, we didn't really ask him to do that much. We said, hey, run some routes, deep routes, and then also hit him on like reverses, end around, stuff like that. He had 100 yards rushing on like 5 or 6 carries. So
yeah.
And he had 16.3 yards per catch. It was basically either run like a slant so we can get you the ball quick, or go deep. And I think you're going to see that with Kaleb Lockett. I do agree with you. Like, route tree wise, I think Jamie French is more there. Like, he's got a pretty good route tree already as a high school kid. So I think you'll see a lot of run from those two. To me, if you look at Steve Sarkisian and what he does, he relies on about 4 to 5 guys. So if you have DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, Jamie French, Kaleb Lockett, you still need one more. That I don't know who it's going to be. I mean, literally, it's a coin flip for me after that. If you have any insight on that, I'd love to know what you think.
I'm curious to see what happens to Ryan Niblett in all of this, because he's a guy who came in as a wide receiver, moved to running back because he has that versatility. He's a guy who, again, another one of those athletes, another one of those kind of guys who can play all over the field, as we saw. And Sark loves those kind of guys. I would almost be curious if they have him more like what we wanted Silas Bolden to be in the offense this year. So that's another one to watch, because again, if the running back room is back to full strength, then I think Niblett goes back to the wide receiver room and plays probably behind DeAndre Moore in that spot. And so he's probably a guy who I think Texas would rely on quite a bit to do some of those gadget plays, to do some of those, hey, we need 3 yards, we're going to run you on a weird wiggle route, we're going to run a little pop pass behind the line. So that's something to keep an eye on as well in this wide receiver battle.
Yeah, and then some of the other guys, Aaron Butler, a guy that we got really late in the cycle last year, speedster. I know people have compared him to Xavier Worthy. Listen, he has the speed like similar to Xavier Worthy. He just doesn't run routes like Xavier Worthy. Like you said, Joe, like Xavier Worthy was a terrific route runner from the jump. He's just not that guy. If he was, he would have been getting run last year. So that's going to be interesting how they use him. Freddie Dubose is one of those guys like, I don't know what the hell's going on with him. Ever since he stepped on campus, everything about him has been quiet, which, hey, that's a good thing. He's not doing anything off the field, but he's not really doing anything on the field either that I hear about. So I don't know what to think about him.
Parker Livingstone's another one. Like, he's a big guy, 6'4", 200, I think 6'4", 190, 200, right? So like, what is he? How does he factor in? Is he a red zone guy? Is he a fade guy? Is he somebody that's going to go out there and get you 15 or 20 snaps a game, and you can rely on him for a couple. That's another one that I really liked Parker Livingston coming out of high school. I think he's a guy who I want to see kind of take a step forward. This wide receiver room is honestly outside of the top two pretty wide open, right? Because like you said, Sark's going to run 5 or 6 guys. So really, there are 4-ish spots that are up for the taking. So is it going to be Livingston? Dubose is a guy who's from right down the road from me in Smithson Valley. So he's another guy that I would really love to see step up and have a big year.
Yeah, Livingstone's interesting because I think they timed him as like the 4th or 5th fastest guy on the team, and the guy's huge. So he's got the athletic ability. Honestly, it's probably just coming down to if he can run the right routes and the route tree correctly. Yep. And if he can do that, he'll play. Like, there's no doubt in my mind he's got the athletic ability. And then you have other freshmen, Dalen McCutcheon and Michael Terry III. I'm very interested to see how they use Michael Terry. I don't know if they're going to use him at wide receiver, if they're going to use him at tight end, if they're going to use him at running back, all three maybe. I know that was the pitch to him. But he talked about when he was on campus, I guess, that he wanted to be more of a wide receiver. So we'll see. And again, another big guy. He's like 6'3.5", 215. Yeah. Good, really good athlete. But in my opinion, it would be a shame not to move him to tight end. I think he fits tight end better than wide receiver, personally.
He feels like a guy who you kind of come in and you see what he looks like after a full semester of strength and conditioning and nutrition at the college level, because he's got a frame that you could see, like you said, bulk up to tight end pretty easily if he gets a good nutrition plan, if he gets a good, but again, he at 18, 17, 18, your body's still changing quite a bit. So he's a guy that, again, a lot of positional versatility. He could be on that Jatavian Sanders kind of receiving tight end route. It's going to be. I'm very interested to see what his body looks like, and that's a weird way to say that, but like what he develops into post spring.
And then Dalen McCutcheon, again, I like him, but he's long-term to me. I don't really see him getting many snaps next year. So we'll have to see with him. And hopefully he gives it time, because if he gives it time, I think he can be a really good player at Texas. I just don't think he's a freshman that can pop right away.
And that's a good thing about having a lot of young talent is that, and even when we talk about Terry, right? He's a guy who may have a little bit longer developmental curve just because he played so many spots at high school. Once he gets focused on one spot, I think we'll probably see some explosive growth from him as well.
No, I agree. And then last question, do you think we should add a wide receiver in the portal if we can? Like, let's say someone between a Matthew Golden type and a Silas Bolden type ender. So like a B- receiver, I would say.
Yeah, when I talk about portal recruiting, and you talk about, do you need to raise the ceiling or do you need to raise the floor? And I think Texas could really do a lot with adding a guy who raises the floor of this group. Like, I think the ceiling is already pretty high based upon what talent they have, but do they have a guy who can go out and be that Matthew Golden? Like, hey, I'm going to be open for 7 yards when you need 6. Hey, I'm going to get the tough couple of yards after catch to get you a first down. I think they probably could stand to use that. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if they don't go out there post-spring, but if there's a guy, I think post-spring that gets you some seasoning, get you some experience, get you, and again, some of that maturity and that ability like you saw from, and I don't expect them to be the ceiling of Matthew Golden, right? Matthew Golden's getting some first-round hype in the NFL draft right now, so I don't expect them to go out and get a first-round guy. But if you can get a solid contributor, 500 yards, a couple of touchdowns, a guy who can be a consistent presence in that room, I would not be mad about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you can go out and get a 400 to 500-yard wide receiver, I think that would be perfect, honestly. If they get that, I would have no issue with it, and I agree. It would just, fortify the room. I think the room is, good talent-wise. Experience-wise, I don't love it. I would love to have a little bit more experience in there, but I'm excited to see. And then let's make this prediction. Next year, who's leading the team in reception yards?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I think, gun to my head, I think I've got to say DeAndre Moore. I think just based on what they can do with him in the offense and his ability to, again, you have him on a pop pass. It's effectively a run, but he's running it for a couple hundred, 20 yards or so. I think he's probably the guy.
I'm going to go Ryan Wingo. So that was our first disagreement on anything. But I just think there's too much upside with him, and he's got such big playability.
I can see that.
And I honestly think they're probably going to have him drop 5 pounds, and he's going to get even faster. He's already pretty fast, but I think he's going to get even faster. So that's going to be the wide receivers before we enter spring. We'll be doing these after spring too, when we obviously get more intel on the rooms as a whole.